much for joining us, guys. We've got a bit of a special treat for you now. We've got 3 magicians going to be doing some tricks for us. Collectively, they're known as Trixx, but individually, they are Dave Vegas, Mozique, and Dr. John. Thanks very much for joining us, guys. Now, the first thing that strikes me is you're all very different magicians indeed, so how did that come about?
Well, it all began some years ago. We met at our local magic circle where we have a meet once a fortnight, and we soon discovered that we were all thinking along the same wavelength as to what magic is an art form and which way to go. And we became all very good friends since then, and it was inevitable that we was going to perform one day together.
Did you not think there could be a bit of a clash? Obviously, like you said, a very big difference in style. Was that never a problem that you had?
Not really, because we are very individual at what we perform. Like I say, Dave's a card sharp guy, I do the psychic illusions, Dr. John here does the Gothic style magic, so we're all going down different paths. And so
gives people a bit of variety. It's not just the generic magician, you know.
A kind of fantastic 3 of the magician models that we're going for, and I like it.
Yeah, League of Extraordinary Magicians.
That's right. Well, obviously there's a lot of experience between you then. How important is that in bringing together an act, especially if you're working together?
I mean, having a good base of knowledge and practical experience in the performing world is very important, and we've all had a lot of that. I mean, we've all been performing and practicing and learning our craft for a long while, so it made it a lot easier for us to come together as a team to go out and perform and know where each other are going and how we can hone each other's acts as well.
We feed off each other as well in terms of the way we present our acts, and we're also very critical of each other's acts, so we act as our own kind of judges and agents, really.
Do you feel you've really improved then as a team?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
People keeping you on your toes. Who's the worst? Who's the worst at keeping people on their toes?
I'll tell me. John, the most critical.
There wasn't much debate there about that. So, obviously being unique seems to be the main kind of theme here. What really, if you had to put it, what makes you unique then?
I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of magic nowadays is people perceive it as the generic magician who, you know, does a sort of trick, and it's all about gags and telling jokes. And although we like to put humour in what we do, what we've concentrated on is the theatrical aspect of magic. Right. So when we go out as our personas, they are an extension of ourselves, and we're giving people a theatrical experience. So when they meet Dave, they feel that they're in a casino, that they're dealing with a real card shark. With Moz, they're bordering on something they don't quite understand. It's a little bit strange. And with me, well, things just get blank weird.
Well, I mean, obviously, I've got to mention the name Dave Vegas, a tremendous name, destined for superstardom, obviously.
Oh, indeed.
Is the whole Vegas kind of theme? Where did that kind of come from then? Your particular character, as it were,
Well, I did a lot of gambling when I was younger, and you know, I've always liked the notion of the con man, the matchstick person. It's just I like the way people get charmed out of their money. It's rather a more cerebral sort of thing rather than with a knife or a gun. We can have a bit of fun along the way. And it was just natural for me to go down that path. I used some of the skills I learnt when I was younger and now use them as sort of as an entertainment form. So it's...
So is Vegas a bit of a Graceland for you then, or not so much?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So with the difference with because like you said, all very different acts. With yours and Mozique, where did that how did that develop?
Well, that developed going back to childhood days actually. Right. When I first became interested in magic, I discovered not only was I practicing the card magic, but I discovered by placing like Fire on the Lady, I somehow tend to find out or know before the person actually selected that card and knew which one they was going to go for. I don't know why, it was just like one of these gut instincts that people have. Like sometimes you know the phone's going to ring before it actually happens. A lot of people might have, you know, experienced that feeling. But because of this kept happening to me on a regular basis, I thought I want to try and home in on this talent that I was kind of been gifted with, as people would say. So I just grown it from there. So that's how it all came about. So.
And then obviously the third angle in the triangle is to come from a slightly more Gothic point of view. Is it similar in the extent from a childhood development again?
To a certain degree. I mean, with myself, I've always had an interest in, you know, the occult in terms of watching films, horror movies, etc. And I started performing magic, and I realised that what magic needed, in my opinion, was a dose of the scares. I like to take my audience out of the comfort zone. I mean, a lot of magic is very entertaining, but I feel it's very vanilla. People just sort of go, oh, that was a nice trick. I like to lift people into an area where they're, oh, I'm not quite sure of this. It's a little bit scary. Well, I kind of know it's not real, but for that split second, they go, ooh. I think we touched on something that I don't understand, and that's nice for me. And lift people out of their comfort zone, and of course the gothic environment of the horror novel, Edgar Allan Poe, all of that, it just combines and builds a nice atmosphere.
Well, when you're playing around with people like this, you must have come across the odd, or does it ever happen, really bad reactions, people that just don't handle it very well? In a sense, it can be quite a personal thing, isn't it, what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, we are a commercial team, so obviously we do have to temper what we do to the environment that we're in. I mean, when I started, I went out really heavy and found myself being sort of, branded as a Satanist and burnt at the stake. But what I do now is I use it as a character, so when people see what I'm doing, for instance, they know it's a character. But there's a part of them that's not sure, and I think that applies to all three of us, really. We do this primarily to entertain, but we do like to pull people out of their comfort zone.
Have you ever had any examples of any people taking it particularly bad? Have you ever had to do quick exits?
Yes, a few times.
When I won the 100 quid off that guy last week, he wasn't.
That's right.
Yeah, it's when you take them for every penny they've got, that's when they get a little bit upset.
It's a wee bit harsh. All of it seems to have developed from, like you said, from childhood, from very early ages. Were there any particular magicians that you looked up to?
Well, Doug Henning was my favourite.
Excellent guy.
He was probably the first real magician that I'd seen on TV. He used to do close-up magic on TV. He was probably the first to do that. And he wasn't in a big spangly costume with lots of ladies running around. He was really interested in the art and focusing people, getting an entertainment and giving them a moment of astonishment, and it really came across on TV. He did the big illusions, but he was just sort of a normal, natural guy, and he really performed the magic. He had a big influence on me, certainly.
Is that similar for
similar characters for all as well? I mean, like Eric Wise or Houdini, as people would know. I mean, he had a big influence, even though obviously long gone before I was even born. But watching old real footage and movie reels of him performing, that had a big impact on my life in magic as well, knowing that he could take a talent, and he was the first ever American magician to bring it, to the big time, and brought it over to Britain as well. So that he had a big impact.
Well, with myself, the one specific magician that springs to mind is a guy called Ricky Jay, and he's actually now an actor. He's been in a lot of Bond movies and things. And one of the things I would love about him was that he would spend a lot of time just talking to an audience. The trick was irrelevant, and he'd be more interested in whether they were born under the sign of Balthazar, for instance, And he would instantly unnerve the audience before it even gone into doing. And then all of a sudden he'd sort of pause and then spread the cards and go, "Now pick a card." And he's brought them in. He's dragged them into this world. So now when they go for the card, they're actually shaking. It's not just a card trick. So it's people like that, people that build the theatre and the atmosphere.
What difference do you think magicians say, like you mentioned Darren Brown obviously earlier on, obviously relates a lot to your particular act, and is it monkey magic, things like that are on the telly now and really coming through to like a youthful audience? What difference does that make, do you feel?
I think it's made a lot of difference.
It's
made magic cool. I mean, magic
Definitely.
went through the sort of spangly jacketed era of the 1970s, and it was fine, but people always associated it with comedians who did a bit of magic. Now there are real, true, genuine mystifiers out there. I always remember the first David Blaine special when it came out. People were talking about this in pubs, clubs, nightclubs. It wasn't like, "Oh, did you watch Paul Daniels last week?" It was, "No, I saw this street guy doing stuff that was just mind-blowing." He made the card go through glass, and people were genuinely.
But what about David Blaine? Like, for example, the trick where he's in a box and he's not eating, is that magic anymore? No. What do you feel about things like that?
It's a difficult one to answer because it was a strange thing for him to do. It was more of an endurance thing. He's always said actually he wanted to be a modern day Houdini, and he's certainly got people talking about him.
Well, the thing is, we are talking about it. I mean, one of the things people used to say to me, I went down to see the box. Stood there looking up at it going, "Wow, man in a box." But the thing is, I did talk about it, so I'm afraid to say it's all about publicity with a lot of those types of effects.
And there's plenty of people in London in boxes.
It's not that impressive. What would you say to people that want to become the next modern day Houdini, young people that want to get involved? What's the best way for young people to get into magic?
Well, the best bit of advice I would give is it's better to learn one thing really well than to try and do several things and not quite get them. Really perfect one thing, know how you're going to present it, and remember that you're there to entertain someone, not look at me, aren't I clever? That really puts people off. So lots of practice. one thing at a time and get them really good. That would be my advice. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
And also
guys.
believe, if they believe in the magic, that they're performing it as a real piece of magic.
Yeah.
If you believe, your audience will also believe.
Absolutely.
So
And I also believe as well, a lot of it's down to you as a person. When you present magic, try and get the audience to like you. At the end of the day, if they like you, they will like your magic. And if they don't like you, it doesn't matter how clever you are with a deck of cards. If you come across as a smart aleck, people will just blank the trick.